You can see now with the material editor open that this existing preset material can obviously be changed any way we want. We can go in and edit it. And that's what I was saying earlier just about some of the presets, existing scenes, that you can open them up and learn from them, but also you can make adjustments to them, which is kind of neat. So here for this gradient, we can literally just make some changes to how it's applied. Click on one of these guys here and change the color perhaps. Just do a little double click and change that. And that changes how the reflection happens on that. But let's say you wanted an entirely new one, that you didn't want to work with something like this. Very easy. Come back down to the Material Manager, File, New Material, and of course you can see just a blank gray material. Double click it, and here we have just a blank material that you can create anything you want. So if you come in here and you change this to, Dan's new surface, okay, you can certainly just come in here and add it to a new layer. And earlier we had talked about using the layers for the objects. If we've got a very complex scene, you can attach a layer to that material. From the top, you've got your various colors, but what's really neat about the colors is that by default you have RGB, but you click this little guy, we can change it to a hue, saturation, and value. We can have a color table if we wanted. So it's very precise if you've got those heavy-duty corporate jobs, and they're very particular about their colors. You can also show a mixing panel if you're not quite sure and you just like working this way better. This is all really just a matter of preference, okay, of how you like to work. I typically just can use the RGB values, sometimes hue, saturation, and value, depending on what's happening with the project. Okay, but the other thing you can do down here, of course, is the brightness of that texture, of that color, I should say. And in the texture here, when you create a new texture, you can create a new color texture, a new Fresnel, a new gradient, noise, and so on. You can actually click and load an image if you wanted, which is great. Just going to put an image in there. And what kind of sampling? Usually mip-map sampling is going to work best for a lot of the things we're going to do. But you can have different anti-aliasing on. I typically stay away from anti-aliasing on images just because it can tend to either over-sharpen or over-blur the image. So the mip-map works pretty well. You can blur it with an offset, a scale offset as well. You can see the resolution right here, as well as that it's an 8-bit RGB, so it should render just fine in most of our stuff. How do you want it to mix? You want to add it? It's adding with the green. You want to subtract it, or you want to multiply it, which is going to make it darker. Very similar to your layers in Photoshop, how you're mixing. Okay. Instead, maybe you want to clear that out and put in, I don't know, a gradient. Okay. Well, that is what you saw earlier with one of those samples. They had a gradient. Okay. And here I can click and just add some colors. Double click to open up the color picker here. Just put a couple of colors on. So this can be great for backgrounds, all kinds of things. And you can change the position of this. So there's vertical. Here's circular, like you saw in the preset. Here's a 4 corner. So very, very flexible. And again, this is a very nice material editor. I've worked with a lot of programs, and I think this is actually one of the more intuitive ones out of a lot of the programs I've worked with. Okay, so to get back, just click that little arrow right there. If you want to get rid of the gradient, come over here and click this little guy, just clear it out. Again, we can come in and maybe choose a colorizer, which is really nice. And it's just a way you can actually colorize. And this really works well if you've got an existing texture underneath and you layer them up. You can do a different type of filter, for instance. You can do sketch and so on, different effects, ambient occlusion shaders, which is really nice if you want sort of a high key look. So as the course goes on, we'll apply different variables from the materials and really just try and shake that up a bit so you get a really good idea of how all of those work. Okay, the mix mode you just saw, the mix strength and so on, and that's all within the color. Then you've got diffusion. Okay, so you can see this is a very robust, very deep material editor. The brightness of the diffusion, how much light the surface is taking from the scene. The luminance value, if you want luminosity, put that on. Great for light bulbs, very bright, whiteboards if you're going to use radiosity on there. If the object's going to be transparent, we want that on, and right away you can see a little preview. The color of the transparency. So later on, we are going to actually make a soda bottle, and we're going to use those values. We're going to put reflections on there as well. And the same principles you saw in the color can work for various things like reflection. So I can come in here and add a image. And we're going to use this bad image here. Okay, but now that is actually a reflection. So if we had a nice fractal noise or some tinfoil or something, we can reflect that in there, which is really nice. Environment. Okay, you can put your environment on, and again, put a texture in the environment. Okay, fog, bump, alpha, and so on. I think you get the idea that we can do a lot of cool things. One thing we are going to do is put a displacement texture on. And here now with displacement, you can see that there's subpolygon displacement, so we can get very fine details. Smooth out the geometry by rounding it. You can go into texture and put another image on and use that, or put a noise on, and now that is actually acting as a displacement. So very easy and very flexible as well. Okay, if you don't want it, just turn it off. Just uncheck it. So as the course goes on, we're going to actually apply bump maps, put environment, use reflections, and so on. So let's just close that out. A couple more things about the Material Manager here. You have different texture channels you can apply. You've got a function menu, so you could render all materials, sort your materials. Down below that you can't see, there's actually a layer browser. And of course, you can edit, and there's a material list and a layer manager down there as well. And mostly, you're going to be in this file menu, where you're going to have different types of shaders, load your materials, and you can save all your materials as a group. So really nice material editor. You can move things around here and organize. And again, just drag and drop to apply, or put it right on here. Okay, so very, very nice. Don't forget, you can always double click and get to the properties for each of these, rename, and so on. Okay, so very happy with the material editor in version 11. I think it's a really great thing, great way to work. And again, just like all the other panels, we can pull this off, put it somewhere else if you're really doing a lot of work or have a lot to choose from. Okay, so let's move on and finish up this lamp project. We're just going to put a little bit of environment, which gets us into talking about the lights, and put another object in the scene that we can cast a light out of here. So we're going to have an environment that we're going to put it in. We're going to have a desk that we're going to put it on, and then we're going to shoot a light out of here. We'll do a little quick render, and then we'll get on to a little bit more complex project.